Hello, welcome to the sideboard here at the Star City Games Season 2 Invitational at SCGCON Winter. Part of the SCG Tour brought to you by Ultimate Garden Carnox Chairs. I'm Nick Miller alongside Aaron Barich, PC hopeful this season. We have a very important invitational here, which leads you to register Possibility Storm.
You know, when I want to put
serious.
My life on the line, we're going to pass Possibility Storm.
This is a deck, and I have a hard time wrapping my head around what's going on here because Pioneer format, everyone's brewing up all kinds of busted stuff, and then I see this deck and you have to explain to me how it works 2 or 3 times.
Right, so, you know, I assume if someone is playing a card that just looks abysmally unplayable, they're probably just smarter than me, and they just know something I don't. So that is what I found. I saw someone playing this Possibility Storm deck. I believe it came from a Japanese tournament. There was just a red-green aggro deck that just had 4 Possibility Storms and a bunch of adventure creatures and Enter the Infinite Borborgamos. And it took me a second to figure out how the combo worked. But the way it works is you cast a Possibility Storm, and then once you have Possibility Storm in play, you cast any of the adventure creatures in your deck, because they're all sorceries. So Possibility Storm says, whenever you cast a spell, you remove that spell from the game, reveal cards from the top of your deck until you hit a card of the same type, and then you may cast that spell. And this works for both players, so you can disrupt people with your Possibility Storm. So you've built your deck in such a fashion where there are no sorceries.
A notable exclusion.
Right, sorceries are a big part of Magic. They're very powerful cards. You know, you're looking to play some sweepers sometimes, and you kind of can't. So in this deck, the only sorcery you're playing is Enter the Infinite, which is kind of the classic.
You know something's up when that card is being played.
It is the in-the-game giant spell. So in this deck, you're casting Enter the Infinite, drawing your deck, and you put back 1 copy of Borborgamos Enraged. So Borborgamos Enraged is also kind of a card that is known for doing stupid things and winning the game when you draw your deck. It's never done anything fair ever. And it's the same thing in this deck. So since I drew my whole deck, Borborgamos is on top of my deck, I can cast any creature spell, and it'll turn into Borborgamos, because it's the only thing left. You know, the Possibility Storm, there's not very many possibilities. Things usually pan out the way I want. So in the deck, you know, you just have all your mana dorks, Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic, Gilded Goose, those can turn into the Borborgamos. Or in games where you're like tight on mana and you need to combo really quickly, you have a Walking Ballista. So you have a 0 mana creature you can combo with. So the combo is Possibility Storm plus Adventure Creature equals draw your deck, hit your opponent for tons
all
of
the lands you have.
All the lands you have left, so 45-ish damage.
So if you caught all of that, the whole plan of the deck is to effectively ramp, then cast Possibility Storm, and then win the game.
Yeah.
So your ramp, like many decks in Pioneer, a bunch of 1-mana accelerants, Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic, Gilded Goose, and Once Upon a Time to find these resources. Then you have your adventure cards. And we saw Fae of Wishes, you know, in Standard, do a lot of things with Fires and Invention. I know you're a fan of that.
Love that card.
You're doing it again here, but you also have Lovestruck Beast and Rosethorn Acolyte as your, these cards have text on them, can be utilized in a game, but are also your combo.
Yeah, that's one of the good things I really like about this deck, is this combo deck, kind of akin to something like Ad Nauseam in Modern, where your deck is kind of built to cast just this combo. You play these 2 cards and your opponent dies, and it's kind of hard to interact with. But your combo pieces in this deck, outside of Possibility Storm, double as being real Magic cards. It's not that hard for you to have games where you go Mana Dork into Rosethorn Acolyte, and you're just playing the Rosethorn Acolyte as another Mana Dork. So if you have multiple adventure creatures, you can use Rosethorn Acolyte, the first one, to ramp you out to the Possibility Storm faster. Same thing with Lovestruck Beast. Against a lot of the aggressive decks, you can just cast a Lovestruck Beast on turn 2. And it's a 5/5. So against the mono red decks and the mono black decks, doesn't get pushed easy, blocks very well. Doing those things is pretty good. You know, against the green decks, sometimes you play the Beast for a 1/1 token and a 5/5, you get a free chump block and a trade. And when you're trying to survive just to the point in the game where you're able to find your storm plus cast a card and the game immediately ends, those little extra bits of time are all that matters.
Right, and one thing I've noticed about this format, we've watched 4 rounds of it so far, there aren't a lot of counter spells going around. No. So if you get to your mana and have Possibility Storm, a lot of what the people are doing on the other side of the table are not interacting with you on the stack. They're playing all these creatures, they're filling the board with Walking Ballistas and other, you know, Winding Constrictors. You just get to do your thing pretty much uncontested.
Yeah, a lot of the time. as you said, the counter spells can be hard. Blue-white control is a real hard matchup. They have, Teferi and Narset. Both those are planeswalkers that you just lock down your combo. You can't. Teferi locks you out of the game with Possibility Storm in play because you can't cast the spells at instant speed. So if they have that card, it's kind of trouble, and you can't combo with Narset. But all of the other matchups feel pretty good. A lot of your green decks don't interact very well. Outside of Ballistas and Voracious Hydras for some of your mana dorks, they can't really interact. And even if they have access to things like Reclamation Sage in the sideboard, they might not get to play it because Possibility Storm, if it's in play, their spell they're casting is more random than that.
Sure.
So one of the biggest tricks to those matchups is they don't actually want to draw their Reclamation Sage. They want it to be in their deck. They want to hope you don't kill him the turn you cast the Storm and they ran him in.
Yeah, it's quasi counterspell or interaction point.
Right. I won a game earlier where my opponent was playing green-white hexproof, and they had a Jamoka's command. And I played Possibility Storm and cast my adventure, and they responded with command, and it just turned into a Once Upon a Time, and they died. So, a lot of the green decks are playing Once Upon a Time. So even with the instant speed interaction in their deck, there's a chance it just turns into a Once Upon a Time a lot.
Yeah.
Unless they're deciding to cut that card, and that often just makes their deck so much worse that...
You're okay with that.
Right.
Other pieces in the deck, you have Oko, because why not? Very powerful card. And then you have a Nissa Vital Force as well. What's that doing?
So we have 4 Okos and 1 Nissa. Oko being just a really good card. One of the things Oko does is against those control decks, a turn 2 Oko is one of your best ways to steal those games. This deck plays 10 mana dorks and 4 Once Upon a Time, so you have a mana dork on 1 nearly every single game. So if you have the Oko, you're almost always able to play it on 2. And being able to beat up planeswalkers that way and pressure people is a huge deal. Oko also is kind of, the Oko sub-game is something people talk about. Your opponent's often forced to pressure your Oko. Even if your Oko never does anything but just make 2 food, that gains 6 life plus all the damage the Oko took, which in this deck might be 2 or 3 turns of magic.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want.
Right, and in the games where they don't kill the Oko, well, you have an Oko.
Yeah.
You still have to beat me making the 3/3 every other turn, or with Gilded Goose, just like every other deck, a 3/3 every turn. So Oko in this deck is good at pressuring walkers and good at helping you play just kind of the fair mid-range game, where you go turn 2 Oko, turn 3 Lovestruck Beast, make a token with the beast, and suddenly you have 10 power on turn 3 and you look like a regular aggro deck.
Right, and we already know you know your way around an aggro deck. So
past that, the Nissa Vital Force, just a 1-of, good at killing walkers. It's good at rebuying Possibility Storms. Also ramps you to 6. If you don't have a 6th land, you can untap a land with it.
Very good. Take us through the rest of the wish board. So you have Fae of Wishes here. What's going on? You obviously have your extra Possibility Storm here, but then you have some other options.
Right, the 1-of Possibility in the Storm to tutor for. Sucks it's got to be there, but it does. Past that, the wish board isn't as much of a wish board as cards you can board in, but it does make a lot of your game ones better because you're able to tutor for these things. The deck has a Chandra Awakened Inferno, which is kind of the best non-creature spell I could find that is good at destroying planeswalkers and gets around counter spells.
Yeah, good against control.
It's very good against the blue-white control deck. So if you're able to resolve a Granted, which isn't that hard, especially if you play an Oko on 2, they answer your Oko while you untap with 4 mana, and you're able to sneak in this Granted and get the Chandra. And there's not a lot they can do to the Chandra once it's in your hand. You'll get to cast it, you'll get to kill something, or do something with it. So there's one of those to tutor for. The other cards, we have Flame Sweep. Kind of wish we didn't have Flame Sweep. I wish we had Anger the Gods or Sweltering Suns, but you can't play sorceries if you plan on boarding it in. And I do plan on boarding Flame Sweep in. It ends up being the best option because it doesn't kill my Gilded Goose. Able to maybe lose my dorks, but Rosebud Acolyte lives and Lovestruck Beast lives, so it does just enough. So 1-of Return to Nature. That card is kind of part of the wish board because there are games. I had a game online where my opponent was able to play a Leyline of Sanctity in their game 1. They were playing the Bobo stack. And I couldn't Borbogamose them because they just had Leyline of Sanctity. It was really weird. And that build of the deck had answers to it in the sideboard, but you need 1 at least. So I have the Return to Nature, so I can just disenchant a single Leyline. And if I really need to, and I have enough mana, I can Nissa back.
Right, you
Return
can
to Nature.
do the loop.
Do things.
Outside of that, you have removal spells between Abrade and Fry, and then counter spells with Aether Gust and Mystical Dispute here.
Right, so there's 2 Abrade, 2 Fry, 2 Gust. Those cards are kind of just to board in against different matchups. Abrade's good against a lot of the smaller creature decks and Stompy. Aether Gust is good against the green decks, allowing you to counter Nissas and stuff. Fry is good against the planeswalkers that are a problem. Also, things like Spell Queller can be an issue because it's hard for you to kill it, so having an answer to that's really nice.
Right.
4 Mystical Disputes, because you have to win those counter wars. Against some of the control decks, if you can't pressure them really early and you're not forcing them to tap out, you got to be able to fight a counter war, and Dispute's just the best way to do that. Against decks like Ramp, Sometimes just 3-mana Mana Leak is also just
Sure.
good enough.
Yeah.
You board it in there, you're just really happy. You know, if you go Dork on 1 and you're on the play, it's kind of just a Mana Leak. You get to counter their thing on 2. So I like all these things a lot. I think the disputes are great. I like the plan. I love this deck, and I think it might be the best, at least the best shell for the pure combo deck in Pioneer.
Right.
I think Possibility Storm plus Adventure Creatures is just a powerful combo. You're killing people very easily. It's hard to interact. You get to play other cards in your deck in addition to that also play Magic. And there's so many ways to build around that combo. You can do other things. I made a comment that I think my Mana Dorks are the worst part of the deck.
Yeah.
And that's because they make you fragile to removal. And there's possibly a way to build a deck where you just don't play the 1-drops, but you play Growth Spiral and Sylvan Caryatid or something.
Sylvan Caryatid, yeah.
And you just become better at being a combo deck, but maybe a little worse fair deck. And there's some balance there. I really like my deck. I think it's super good against a lot of the green decks. I think it's pretty good against the aggro decks. It's definitely great against anyone else trying to do unfair things, because you are just way more unfair and faster because you have 10 dorks once upon a time.
Yeah. Well, you made it through the first portion of Pioneer at 3-1.
3-1.
We're into Modern. We know you know your way around that format. So hopefully we get to see day 2, and I would love to get this deck on camera now that people need to see this and what you're doing to people.
Yeah, it's fun to do, especially when people you pass Possibility Storm, and everyone has to read it. And they read it, and they still have to ask me what it does.
Hold on, what?
What does this actually do? So it's really fun to kill people and just explain it to them as I go through it.
All right, well, I look forward to it. Hopefully this becomes a part of the format. Aaron, thanks for joining me on the sideboard as usual. Stay tuned to Star City Games all weekend long for the action here in Roanoke.